Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Welcome again. We're glad to have you here. Glad you chose to join us today. I am excited to introduce our guest. This is Chad Ingram, and he is the founder and CEO of Distro. And Chad, thank you so much. You're right here in Lehi, which is close to where I live. So Lehi, Utah is where you're based out of. But thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Tell the audience a little bit more about Distro and what you folks do.
Well, it's funny. Before I do that, I just realized, so I had surgery last week. I told you that as we were getting started. And I shaved my beard for the first time in like 12 years. And I was hoping that I would see it before I, before it grew back. And I need like another week. So anyway, it's kind of ironic. Now this will be seared in the internet,
That's true.
So a little bit about Distro. Distro is a web-based application and a marketplace to help tech companies find, hire, and pay people around the globe. Distro automates essentially payments to over 200 countries, allowing people to find a much broader, more diverse pool of talented and skilled people.
Wow, that's great. So that's impressive. 200 countries. Wow.
Yeah. Typically, it's more than that. It's like 220 something or so.
Wow. Well, that's a great way to bring our worldwide community together. So love that.
Yeah, definitely. It's been pretty exciting.
Well, good. I'm glad it's been exciting for you. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started with our questions. Our first question, Chad, as you've been growing your business, is there a challenge that you've overcome that you're especially proud of?
Like I think initially assembling the team was going to be difficult. That was one big challenge I was concerned about. My last startup, we were VC backed. We grew and ended up selling after a few years. And I regretted in that business not having a co-founder. And so getting a team together, the essential core team, I think was one big challenge we were working on. The second one that's a little bit more tactical was as we were launching our product about a year ago, because we've only been doing Distro for about a year and a half. The big challenge was, again, more of a product and logistical challenge, was how to get users to join Distro to be hired on that side of the marketplace. And it felt really good to be able to get that done. And we actually did it really quickly and basically built a funnel to be able to gather users to join Distro who want to be hired by mostly American tech companies.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big challenge. Assembling a team is a big deal. So glad that was something that you kind of worked out. So congratulations on that. All right. Question number 2. How can a leader help to kind of foster or nurture creativity within the team or the company?
Yeah, I think this is one that a lot of people struggle with. And by people, I mean leadership at companies. And in my space is startups in particular, right? And it's hard because there's a balance of like helping people know what to do and what they should be doing versus saying, go do what you feel is best to do. And I tend to lead on the side of letting people choose for themselves. So the way to do that is by creating a very clear definition of the company vision, which is, I like to look at the Jim Collins framework of, what is the purpose of the company? What's the purpose at the company? What are the core values of the company, which is like how we behave, how do we act? How do we make decisions? Those are the core values. And then ultimately the mission, which is not like a mission statement. Mission is more like, where are we going and by when, and what does it look like? What does success look like? And so when you can define those things a little bit more broadly, you can think of maybe a little bit more of the strategy. You can let your team members decide what they want to do and how to get there. And so think of it like a freeway, right? Like we're all headed in the same direction on the I-15 headed south. You can pick your lane. As long as we're moving in the same direction, we're all moving into relatively good speed. We shouldn't mess up, right? Because the freeway creates the guardrails. And that's what I think creating and defining an aligned purpose values and mission do to a company.
I like that analogy a lot because it's a good picture when you think about different, lanes on the freeway there, and the cars all going different speeds, but all moving in the same direction. That works really
Right.
well. Yeah, I like that. That's great. All right, question number 3. How can leaders help the team members to develop trust with each other?
That's really interesting. This one's harder. This one's definitely harder. I think maybe to answer that question, it's more about describing what it looks like what success looks like. And it's ironic because you would think that, like, on the surface, a team that trusts each other is a team that doesn't fight, a team that gets things done, quickly sometimes, a team that argues less. But I think a team that trusts each other is a team that actually fights a little bit more, productively, but that they're challenging one another. Going back to I'm forgetting who the author is. Five Dysfunctions of a Team is a great book if you've heard of that.
Lencioni.
Yeah, Patrick Lencioni. And he says something that I'll never forget. When I read that book years ago, it's important to foster trust leadership within the leadership and with the team you're leading, in both directions, up and down, to allow people to weigh in, regardless of whether people disagree or not. Weigh in is buy-in. Okay, so whether they actually agree on the thing that we're doing, when somebody has been heard, then they're more likely to participate, right? When they feel like they haven't been heard or they've been shut down too quickly, no holds barred. It just doesn't build trust. It doesn't foster trust. So you have to create an environment where people can be completely open with each other, and it's okay to let them fight. I remember there was I had an executive team meeting. We'd meet every Monday, and I think at 10 a.m. in my last startup. And this was big. We had, like, at the time, I don't know, 60, 65 people. And my leadership team was made of, I think, 6 or 7 of us. And we're sitting in a room, and I've got one executive leader who's yelling at another executive leader, and he's yelling back because, he feels attacked. And this one feels unheard, or dismissed. And I remember sitting there, like, thinking, I should probably stop this. And then I remember thinking immediately, no, you shouldn't, let it play out. and ultimately they arrived at the conclusion that they were just misunderstanding each other. Yeah. And the biggest lesson learned in that is that the evidence of me trusting somebody is me telling them the truth, regardless of how I think they might feel about it. If I didn't trust somebody, I say nothing. If I do trust somebody, I say something.
Interesting. I like that approach a lot. And I really like what you said about that weigh-in equals buy-in, or leads to buy-in. I think that's really important, because we're always going to have disagreements. People are always going to have disagreements in any setting. And some are certainly more serious than others. But the opportunity to speak your mind and to feel like you've been heard, and at least it's been considered, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And allowing people to do that with each other, I think that's a great way to help build trust. So fantastic. All right. Question number 4. Is there a challenge that, or maybe something happened that you kind of perceived it originally as a failure, but you turned it into a win?
Yeah. This is kind of interesting. I was trying to think there for a second. I was reading over the question. There's so many, I'm sure. But one that just came to me is that we got started, to give you a little context, we got started with distro, or the idea for distro, in the fall of 2021. And we started writing code in November or so on our product, and built our MVP to go to market in, like, March or April of 2022. So last year. Yeah. And very quickly we started getting attention from potential customers. Like, in order to get customers, we reached out to some people in my network and basically said, hey, here's a problem that we're solving. And we think we can solve it in a pretty significant way. Are you also having this problem? And would you be willing to help us and test it with us? And they said, yeah, that, for sure, we'd love to help. Most of the time when you ask somebody for help, they're willing to help you, So we hit the ground running and we started selling very quickly, and which was great. And because we started selling really quickly, we started getting, venture capitalist groups and venture investors, early stage investors reaching out to distro. And so it was funny. We actually had one group come after us and give us an offer to invest last summer, like really quickly. And generally it doesn't happen like that. Usually you run a process and you go out and you meet with a lot of groups and boil them down into a funnel, and it's kind of a tedious process, but it seemed great. It seemed great. All right, somebody's going to reach out. It'll save us a ton of time just to take an offer from somebody. And so then it turned out like 2 weeks later, while we're kind of talking, negotiating, 2 weeks later, the market just tanked in the NASDAQ and tech, which is mostly tech, last summer. I think this was June. I want to say June last summer is when that tanked. And everything changed. So they called us and they retraded their offer in half. The market's changing. We don't know what's going to happen, this and that. And that was kind of a bummer. It was on the surface, it seemed like a failure. And so immediately it seemed like we should just walk away from that. And we did. So we chose not to. And so had we taken money from them in desperation or something like that, which we didn't technically have to have, then we were surviving fine. Startup. But had we taken that money, it could have got pretty dicey for us as the economy for the venture-backed startups and the venture capitalists in the last 9 months has been just hammered. Especially evidence of that is the more recent Silicon Valley Bank collapse, which we were all customers of in our industry, right? So in that sense, I think something that on the surface could have felt like a failure or viewed as a failure then actually turned out to be something pretty awesome that we didn't do.
So it's a good decision not to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is difficult sometimes when you have those moments and things can turn on a dime fast, and then it's like, ouch, that hurts. But then you look back on it after a little bit of time and you realize, okay, maybe that was a thing for the better. That blessing in disguise, cloud has a silver lining, all those phrases. But I'm glad that's something that worked out well for you in the long run. So that's great.
Yeah, it's not every day you think, yeah, we're going to turn down, $3 million.
Right. It's like, oh, thanks. Yeah, big decision, but I'm glad it worked out. Well, question number 5, our last question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is when I hear job, I think like, employment, but so maybe this is the wrong answer, but my first job is when I was I think I was 9 years old. So me and my brother, who was 2 years older than me, so maybe I was 8 or 9 and he was 11 or 12, and we'd we asked our parents to take us to Walmart to buy stencils and spray paint, because you can't buy spray paint as a kid. And then we would go around and my brother would paint the curbs. And now looking back, like I'm kind of upset about it because he should have been selling, but I was selling. And so maybe we take turns. I can't remember, but I do remember going door to door, and I would go door to door and sell numbers painting on curbs in California, where I grew up. I grew up in LA. And so I would go knock doors as a kid, and we charged like $30-$40 back then. That was a lot of money to a little kid. And we'd go do like 8 of those in an afternoon after school, and we had a ton of money as kids in cash. So, and I don't think our parents even like really knew how much money we made. I don't think they even thought to ask. But we'd go do that a handful of times when we wanted some money. But that was the first thing that we had done. I love that.
Obviously an entrepreneur from a young age, going out and making it yourself. That's awesome. Oh, I like that. That's a great story. And there are no wrong answers. Your whatever is the wrong answer. Whatever you view as your first job, that's the one that counts. So I love hearing the answers. It's fun to hear different people's experience on work and entrepreneurship. A lot of people, their first job was something, babysitting, mowing lawns, paper route, stencil. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one, but doing some
Yeah.
spray printing the numbers, I think that's a great idea. So
Yeah, it is awesome.
great.
There's always money in stencils.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. That's a great way to look at it. Well, Chad, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Really enjoyed having you on. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, which is Chad Ingram, the number 11 at at Instagram. You can also email me. That's Chad, CHAD, at distro.io. Or you can just go to our website and try Distro for free. So Distro's free to use. It's a pretty simple platform. You pay nothing till you hire somebody. And so you can meet lots of people from around the world. Great platform. We'd love your feedback. So you can reach out to me via email, or of course, I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can search my name, Chad Ingram.
Fantastic. What's the website one more time?
Distro, DISTRO .io.
.io. Yeah, that's the important part, is that extension. It's not .com, .io.
I know, exactly.
Great. Chad, thank you again. Really appreciate you being on the show. Have a great day, everyone. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.